The biogeographical regions today, we will be discussing about the New Caledonia. The geological studies show that New Caledonia is the smallest surviving fragment of Gondwana. So its area is about 1600 kilometers square, and it is the smallest one which is surviving even today. So it drifted away from Australia in the late Cretaceous, which is 80 to 65 million years ago, and reaching its present position 1500 kilometer east of it 50 million years ago. So it is moving away from the Australia, and it is a hot spot for the biodiversity, as we have seen that there are certain islands or the areas which are hot spot for the biodiversity. The New Caledonia is one of them. So the original position of Zealandia, which is the shaded close to the South Pole, before it broke away from the Gondwana. So Zealandia, what is Zealandia? Zealandia is the large continent on which the New Zealand, New Caledonia, and is found, and it is forming this part of the South Pole as well, as you can see in here as well. So New Caledonia is adjacent to the Australia, and it is sort of having a line of separation between Australian, East Antarctica, and South America. So long distance dispersal is a view of the biogeographers according to which they say that the adjacent long distance areas, for example in the case of New Caledonia, the Australia, or the adjacent areas, the dispersal took place from there, and the organisms arrived in there and they formed their own taxa there. So in the view of large amount of research that shows the frequency of long distance dispersal in such scenarios, most biogeographers today believe that this was the mechanism of arrival of ancestor of the New Caledonian taxa. So this was the reason we see the different biodiversity on the New Caledonia. So the geological studies show that island was submerged for a long period in the Paleocene to Eocene, so that the island was not available for colonization until about 37 million years ago. So it was underwater for 37 million years in the Paleocene to Eocene, and it only came on to the terrestrial environment in 37 million years ago. So New Caledonian species must therefore have diverged from their ancestor after this date. So whatever the species appeared there, they must have diverged at this point. So Panbiogeographers, they are another group of scientists. They reject the long distance dispersal. They theorize that Cretaceous ancestor of present biota were widespread across the Pacific islands, including on supposedly formerly exposed large plateaus such as Ontong Java Plateau. So they are saying that there were some landmarks, there were some land plateaus, there were dispersing species across the Pacific, and these were the responsible for the presence of different taxa on the New Caledonia. So biogeographers have investigated the history of the angiosperm family Septotaceae, and this is the species which is found on the New Caledonia, and the species of this family are found in the New Caledonia. And the result was that this investigation resulted from the 9 colonization of the island between 33 and 4.2 million years ago, dates that are about 40 million years after the drifting of New Caledonia from Australia. So there were 9 colonization that were coming, and that were ranging from 33 million years ago to 2.2 million years ago, and all of those were coming from the Australia, and that was happening after the Australia rifted from the New Caledonia. So the story is that New Caledonia separated from the Australia, and it was submerged under the water until the 37 million years ago. It came up, and now the migrations or dispersal from the Australia started, and then due to that dispersal, the species that we found today on that New Caledonia that are Australian in origin. So New Guinea and Australia were the most important sources of the arrival. Those from the Pacific island arriving only recently, that were 27 to 24 million years ago. These results are clearly totally incompatible with the panbiogeographers' theories. So panbiogeographer theories, they were not almost all right, because they were saying that the only source of life is from the Pacific island through their own theory. But the later studies and the latest studies have shown that the origin of these species were New Guinea and Australia.